Well, I hate doing it, but I'm returning to a subject which is fairly regular with this program, and I wish it wasn't. And that's what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians. And finally, there's some action being led in the United States Senate by Bernie Sanders to stop America's support of this basically genocide. And I wanted, New York Times today was interesting. Letters to the editor. Charges against Israel. Regardless of inflammatory and appalling statements by some members of Israel's political leadership, the actual conduct of the war shows that an intent on genocide is indeed meritless. Israel's military drops leaflets to warn civilians of potentially dangerous areas. It calls civilians, asking them to evacuate before strikes, and it lets in some food, water, and fuel for civilian use. Remember what that fellow just said, because if you flip the page, this is in the New York Times, back to the front page, and here you have, you see that? You see all those little red marks? The title of this front page news, top of the New York Times, powerful bombs routinely hit so-called safe areas. And this is a map showing all these red marks where the 2,000-pound bombs, and you can look around, that's all over the news, what these 2,000-pound bombs are doing to the cities that they're bombing, particularly Gaza City, which is just nothing more now than a bunch of concrete rubble. Just destroying. These are massive bombs. On page 6, where the article goes into further detail about these bombs, we find out that the United States has supplied Israel since the October invasion by Hamas with 5,000 of these 2,000-pound bombs. Now, to say that Israel is not doing anything really bad to the Palestinians because they tell them where to go, this map shows that the places they're telling these people to go for safety are the very same places where they're dropping these 2,000 bombs by the thousands. By the thousands. And as far as genocide is concerned, what they're doing isn't just killing people over there. I'm not talking about killing innocent men and women, children, mainly children. The Israelis are, by dropping these bombs and running in tanks and this horrible invasion of Gaza, where they're killing, I think now it's somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people in Gaza have been killed. The vast majority of those innocent women and children having nothing to do with Hamas's invasion. That not only are they killing these people, but they're now on the brink of starvation. Once this thing is all over, if it ever is over, there's no place for them to go live. The Israelis are now talking about they should all leave what's left of them, and they should go to Egypt, which of course is not going to take in somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million people, any more than, we have when a few thousand people show up on our border. So basically what they're doing is making these people, not killing them and shoving them into places where there's no place for them to live, there's no shelter, now there's no food, they're going to be starving, and all of this in the name of what? Because 1,200 Israelis were killed by Hamas. 1,200 people is not a lot of people compared to almost 30,000. So, which brings me to my next point, which is, I'm going to turn that overhead light over. It's glaring in my eyes. I needed it to read the New York Times for your benefit, because I know that most of you are not reading the New York Times, which you should be doing. So, I'll be back. I'm coming back. Don't panic. I'm coming back. There we go. Okay. It's a little darker, but it gets off some of that glare. I know you thought that was my halo. Should be. So, I hear all the time people justifying Israel by saying, well, look, Israel was attacked. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has to get rid of Hamas because they are an existential threat to Israel. Every family in Israel either was directly affected by this or they know somebody who knew somebody who was affected by this. That's 1,200 people were killed, and some 200 were taken and 100 have been returned. There's like 100 remaining hostages. That's a lot of people, and certainly what happened there was horrific. You don't go around, I don't care what your cause is, you don't go around beheading children. So with these Hamas just murderers, thugs, pathological murderers, did was inhuman. But the people who did that were not the people being killed by the Israeli bombs. It was a handful of people who came across there and attacked a bunch of innocent civilians. And that was not an existential threat to Israel. They didn't attack any major city. They didn't attack any major installations. Israel still has one of the most powerful militaries on the planet, as is seen by, and it's unleashing that force against Gaza. It was not an existential threat. They did not need to go into Gaza and kill every member of Hamas in order for Israel to continue to exist as a country. In fact, if anything, they're jeopardizing their whole existence. And this isn't the Israeli people. This is Benjamin Netanyahu and you American Jews who are sitting here saying, I know I'm liberal, but yet, Israel's got a right to defend itself. You're not talking about Israel here. You are saying here that what Netanyahu's government is doing is fine. Well, it's not fine. Thank God we've got Bernie Sanders and a handful of, an increasing number of American Jews are finally seeing what's going on over there and saying, stop saying this is okay because it's in the nature, related to Israel's survival as a nation. No, it's not. This is directly related to Netanyahu's desire to do everything he can to drive the Palestinians out of that part of the world. And if you don't see that, it's because you don't want to see it. So open your eyes and take a look. And even Bernie Sanders, as much as he's been a leader on this issue, I saw him on Meet the News People or whatever the hell that. I watch all these shows. I forget which ones they are. I think it was on Meet the Press, and he was being asked about this. It was last Sunday, and they said, well, but Senator Sanders, what about this? The idea that Israel has to defend itself, and they were attacked by Hamas. They have to go out after Hamas, and he kind of hemmed and hawed, and then he said. Well, it still is. It isn't right to kill children going after Hamas. It isn't right to be doing this thing, which is having this horrific impact on innocent civilians. But he evaded the question. How do I know he evaded the question? Because I'm a trial lawyer. Watching people evade questions is what I do for a living. I've been doing it for over half a century. No, that's not possible. Did I say half a century? No, I meant a half a decade. Yeah, that's it. So, what he should have said was, look. Getting rid of Hamas and they're not an existential threat to Israel. Killing 1,200 unarmed people does not mean that you have shown that you are capable of using your military forces to take down one of the largest militaries in the world, the far largest military in that part of the world. Doesn't show you're capable of doing that. The fault was that they didn't properly protect their border between Hamas and Israel. Also, the fault lies with the way they were treating the people in Gaza all this time anyway, where they had them under basically in what's been called the largest open-air concentration camp in the world. Their treatment of the people in Gaza was horrific, and eventually something was going to give there anyway. But over and above that, even assuming it wasn't, assuming Israel has been perfectly fine in its treatment of these people, but they knew there was a possible threat. Well, then what you do is you patrol that, and they were warned over a year ahead of time that this was going to happen. So it was a failure of the military to defend Israel. They can still defend Israel, but that would require Netanyahu to admit that his government failed, that they let this happen, and they shouldn't have let it happen, and they could have stopped it. That's what they should say, and they should say, now we're going to redouble our defenses, and we're also going to do things to lessen the pressure on Gaza. But now, of course, that's way too late for that. That ship has sailed. But that's what they could have done. It had nothing to do with the need to defend Israel's right to existence. You didn't need to go into Gaza and go in a bunch of tunnels and go after a bunch of tunnel rats in order to defend Israel's existence. All you needed to do was make sure you had people along the border, and when you got warned, to take the warning seriously. And put arms along there. Israel has this massive army. It has the dome to protect itself from missiles coming in from Gaza and the rest of the Arab world. It has the third largest air force in the world, is my understanding. It has a navy. It has all kinds of military assets. Plus, it has all kinds of intelligence. It has access to America's satellite communications. It has drones. On and on and on. They can easily defend themselves against a handful of basically murderers, and many of whom were teenage kids. You saw them riding around in their jeeps, whooping it up, thinking they were hot stuff. they could easily have defended themselves. They could easily defend themselves now. They don't have to go in and kill a bunch of the human shields to kill the Hamas people in order to protect their right to exist. That's a lie. And it's an obvious lie to anybody who wants to step past the slogan and the platitude and look at the facts, which is what I encourage you people to do all the time, and of course none of you do it. But in all seriousness, as they say, all seriousness aside, paying attention to facts, get past slogans, get past platitudes, look at facts as though you were going in a courtroom, which is what I try to do in all my evaluations, including in the world of international affairs and politics. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest, which is the purpose of the show anyway. But I think if you think about it, what Netanyahu is doing is evil, it's vicious, it is genocide, and if you're not calling it out for that because you support Israel, and I got to tell you, I've been very disappointed in people like Bill Maher, who said, I'm for Team Israel, I'm on Team Israel, like this is a football game. Well, I'm on Team Michigan, and if Michigan gets by with a few fouls when it's playing Ohio State, well, hey, that's part of the game. This isn't a game. Innocent people, and particularly children, toddlers, are being murdered by the Israeli army. That should make everybody's blood run cold. Imagine if it was your kids. Imagine if you're a kid and it was your parents. These people are defenseless over there. I'm not talking about the handful that are Hamas, rats running, tunnel rats running. I'm talking about the people just trying to survive. I'm outraged about it. It makes me sick to my stomach. What more makes me sick to my stomach is I don't hear more Americans speaking out against this, but that will grow. And fortunately, we're seeing more and more members of the Jewish community doing it, but it makes me sick to hear Bill Maher, whom I've respected, talk about, well, I'm for Team Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself, and then that's the end of it, completely ignoring what's going with the humanitarian crisis being brought about unnecessarily by Benjamin Netanyahu. I want Bill Maher to start taking an objective look at this the way he does at most things. And I have the same problem with Morning Joe. I love Morning Joe. But boy, now when he and he's been pretty good about calling Netanyahu, but then he keeps coming back to, but Israel was attacked. This whole thing was started in October. Well, it wasn't started on October 7th of last year. This thing goes back to 1860 in terms of modern history, unless you want to go all the way back to the Bible, which I don't because I'm old, but not that old. But this whole the real issues that really started in 1947, and of course escalated. Brought to a crisis in 1948, and then again in 1967, I think it was. And I was in college at the time, and I remember it very well. So where Israel then grabbed all kinds of land that it did not get from the United Nations. So this whole thing goes back and back and back, and it's a layer of, it's an onion, you can keep peeling the layers back, and where you stop depends pretty much on whom you want to support. But to say that because they attacked Israel in October, or they like it's all one person, right? Like these thugs from Hamas came in there and committed these barbaric acts, makes it okay then for the Israeli government to launch any kind of attacks it wants to against innocent civilians. That's not okay, and I hope you don't think it's okay either. So on that delightful note, to start the new year, but hey, I didn't start all this. I'm just seeing it, and what I'm seeing, I don't like. But I like you. Yeah. I don't know why.